Hi guys, I'm Miko and I'm going to talk to you about the deck that I use to top 8. My inspiration for this deck is actually from two Briar lists. One is from Yuhan Lee and one is from Nathan Crawford. It's kind of a mid-range deck rather than all-out aggro deck, which hopefully Briar can adjust depending on its opponents. The reason why I chose Briar is first, it's a very fast deck to play with, given that Nationals is a very time-consuming and very fatiguey type of a tournament, which has 9 rounds, 6 rounds of Swiss. My first deck of choice is actually Icelander, but I think I will have a hard time concentrating playing 6 rounds of Icelander, and I opted to play a more aggressive deck, which is Briar. Since I have a 13 card sideboard in the 80 card pool, I only have room for 7 equipments. Starting off with a weapon of choice, of course, for Briar or any Runeblade, it's the Rosetta Thorn. No need to explain it. One resource for 2 and 2 damage. For the armor set, I have the standard COP, which are Crown of Providence with the Spring Tunic, Grasp of the Arknight, and the Snapdragon Scalers. This is the main equipment. For the sideboard, I only have 2 remaining slots for the equipment, which is the Dyadic Carapace, which is very, very good, and a Crown of Dichotomy just for the AB1 on the head slot. There are better AB1 armors like the Vexing Quill Hand, but for Briar, or at least for this deck, I needed an AB1 armor for the headpiece. This deck has particularly 18 blues in its main deck, and actually it's 3 more blue cards in the sideboard. So first off, I'll show you, this is Force of Nature, the only non-earth blue for this deck. Especially for this deck, is very strong. Paired it up with Channel Mount Heroic later. It really gives you the not draws and the power turns of Briar. The rest of the blues are the following. Earthlore Surge. It's a very good 2 cost that gives a 3 pump to your attack with. That also gives you a spare resource to play Rosetta Thorn after. It's probably one of the most played blues in the deck, even if you really don't want to play blues as much. The next one is Tome of Harvest. Tome of Harvest is really just there when you have very clunky draws and you really need to either have more attack action cards or more non-attack action cards, and it just replaces the one from your arsenal and your hand. Next, it's Autumn's Touch. It's the only attack action card that's blue. You don't want to play it, but sometimes you have no choice but to play it. And it still is an Earth action card that pairs well later with CMH. This card is probably the one that's not most included in most Briar decks, which is So Tomorrow. I just love it because it's a non-attack action card with Go Again. In case it comes into the arsenal, it replaces itself. And basically, it can recycle one of your CMH shaft when you play it. And last, it's probably the strongest blue card, for me at least, is the Anthem of Spring. It's a card that blocks you for 4, because usually you always have one embodiment of Earth in play, and with Anthem of Spring's ability, it gives you another embodiment of Earth that, if you would like to play defensively, Anthem of Spring usually does it for you. We can move on now to the reds, or the attack action cards for this deck. So I think with Briar, most of the cards here have what I call conditional go against. Everyone is a 0/4/4 card, so it's basically free. Attacks for 4, and it nets you. It trades more than your opponents because most of the blocks are 3. It is a breaking point, so they either have to block for 3, take 1, or block with 2 cards or 1 card in hand and 1 from equipment. And I think that's why the Briar deck is very strong, because it's more advantageous for you. So my first card I like to show is Scar for a Scar. Basically, you don't need to have the Go Again activate all the time, but there are just times where it's actually good. You have less life because you're trying to outrace the opponent, and it's also trying to outrace you. Next is Entwine Lightning, another 0 for 4 card. Conditional Go Again. It only gives you Go Again if you fused it with a Lightning card, which the only Lightning cards that this deck has are 4, if I'm not mistaken. 3 Lightning Surge and 1 Lightning Press. Next is the Lightning Surge, which gives you Go Again if it's played from the arsenal. So we can see that most of the cards in Briar doesn't have the Go Again ability innately, but just because Briar doesn't need it also. Next is Swarming Gloom's Veil. This is default 0 for 3, but it usually with the Briar decks, it also becomes a 0 for 4 card with Go Again. Since you can play a Rune Chant, which is an aura, or an embodiment of Earth, or an embodiment of Lightning. Any of those auras can give it +1 attack and a Go Again. Next, it's Ravenous Rabble. This is the only card that has a Go Again ability, attack action card with a Go Again ability, which nets you for 4 attack or for 2, depending on the card it's revealed. I think with the ratio of this deck, it has 70% that it will hit for attack. So the next card is Seek Horizon. This is inspired by Nathan Crawford. He discussed this in one of his deck decks, where the conditional Go Again that Seek Horizon has is very useful, and it actually won me 2 games. I think one against Kano and one against Dromai, because of the ability of Seek Horizon of having it Go Again, but you have to place a card back to the top of your deck. Some of the other attack action cards for Briar is Snatch. Nothing to say here. 0 for 4. If it hits, draw a card. Goes well if you have an embodiment of Lightning, since you don't have to use Snatch last. Or sometimes you also need to play Snatch, then use your Snapdragon Scalers just to net value. I also have 2 Exude Confidence. Great card against the, decks with lots of defense reactions, and sometimes you just have a lot of blue cards in your hand and you just need to spend 3 or 6 resources just to pump it, just to gain value. And the last attack action card for this deck is the E-Strikes or Enlightened Strikes. Very versatile card, gives you both. It can have Go Again, can attack for 7, or you can just draw a card and place it in your arsenal after. Last, sorry, I forgot. It's Nimble Strike. This one is inspired again from Yuan-Ji's list. It's a 1 for 4 card, but if you have a Nimbleism in your graveyard, it basically is a 1 for 5 with Go Again. And of course, we can move into the non-attack action cards. So first off, we have the CMH or Channel Mount Heroics. So one of the reasons why you play Briar, every attack, once you have CMH in play, is boosted by 3. No need to explain anything there. Next are the Nimbleisms. Basically, Nimbleisms pump all of your attack action cards by 3. It's a great way to activate Embodiment of Lightning, and really just reduces your opponent's life greatly. The other Nimbleism for the Runeblade is the Bramble Sparks. So the Bramble Sparks are basically Nimbleisms that have a Fuse ability and nets you 1 arcane damage. The next card that I really love are these Earthlore Surges Red. It's a +5 pump, and it's a great way to make sure that your CMH stay another turn. Usually you pair it with another Earth card that's blue, You can create a rune chant, attack with Rosetta, and have 2 earth cards in your pitch zone, which keeps your CMH alive. And the last card for the main deck for this Briar list is the Sonata Arcanix. It's probably the weakest card in this particular deck, in my opinion, since I usually side it out every time, at least during the Nationals. There's only one game wherein I kept Sonata, and that's against Kano, just because I don't need to cite in my defense reactions for that particular matchup. Next, we can move into the sideboard for this deck. I have 6 defense reactions, 3 Sigil of Sufferings, 3 Sink Belows. I usually side these in all matchups. One of the reasons I chose Briar to play is it's not just a all aggro, all aggressive deck. It is a true mid-range deck where you can be defensive and net value by attacking 1 to 2 cards at a time. The next sideboard card are the CNCs, or Command and Conquers. Nothing to discuss. I think almost all decks have CNCs in their sideboard, especially good against the meta with Lexis or any other decks which has good arsenal cards. Second to the last are 3 Warmonger's Diplomacy. This is a very controversial card, especially for Runeblades, since it affects the class very much, and even myself as Briar. However, I feel that Warmonger's Diplomacy is very strong against the meta. So aside from its ability, it's a blue card which is useful against arcane damage. So this is my 19th, 20, and 21st blue card for Icelander decks to give you additional arcane barrier. And for other matchups like Viserys, even for Dorinthias, I really like to side in Warmonger's Diplomacy, just because it kinds of disrupts their tempo. And last but not least, the last card that I have in my sideboard is a Lightning Press. I'm not sure when to side it. It's more of a feel card, but I guess the Lightning Press is there to make sure that one of your on hits gets to net damage to your opponent when needed. For example, for Snatches, it's a very good card to start having your powerful turn with like a Nimblism, then Snatch. Then if they block it for 10, you have an additional pump, and then that draws you additional card, then just tramples down to a very, very powerful turn. This deck did very well. I went 5-1 during the Swiss for CC and 2-1 draft. So I was very surprised that it went 5-1. I only lost to an Uzuri just because our team doesn't have an Uzuri player, and I didn't know how it played out against this matchup. I fought a Bravo, a Lexi, a Dromai, a Dorinthia, and a Kano. I only lost to a Bravo top 8 with a teammate, which had a very good match, a very good game with like 2 dominated Starstrucks, pulverized turn, and dominated crippling crush, and basically Briar just wasn't able to keep up. It's very sad that Briar is leaving since he LL'd a couple of days ago, since I really like to use this deck more. But it's time to move on, and I'm still trying to look for other decks that can match up with the mid-rangey type of Briar. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I'm looking at Fire right now, and probably a different version of Lexi, I guess. The list of the deck can be found below, and also don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.